You're listening to Second Cut. This is the weekly podcast from thefilmmagazine.com, where I interrupt Sam as we talk about something behind the scenes during the theme music. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who doesn't have a lucky egg.
I'm Sam. I'm the one who can swim, but not well enough to save my life.
Oh, wait, so if you were drowning, you could not swim well.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll get to it when I get to my film. But I couldn't do what these people do in this film. Basically, I think drop me in the middle of an ocean, and I'm not coming out of that alive. You know, I can keep going, hold my own, but no.
All right, well, real quick, let's have the discussion we were having. I got the Night of the Hunter Criterion DVD for half off.
Yeah, and I got the Arrow Blu-ray version of it, but it has got the feature-length documentary about Charles Lawson. So,
and that's all that matters.
That's the main reason I got it.
Yep.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I watched it on Amazon, and really I wanted the behind-the-scenes stuff and all of that. So, but yeah, we talked about that last week. But after struggling to come up with a topic last week, this week we came up with Olympics pretty easily because, you know, we're hot in the swing of the Summer Olympics right now.
Yeah. Are you enjoying it? Are you watching much of it?
Not much. I'm mostly hearing people yell as something happens, and ironically chanting USA to myself in my room.
I'm a big fan of just playing Olympic roulette. You know, just switch your TV on any time of day and watch whatever comes up. You know, it's fun.
Yeah. So Sam, we had a question from dad of the show. Does your dad hyphenate his last name too?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
My mum does, but no, he's just got his own name.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. So my dad Andrew asked if they made a film of this Paris Olympics, what might the stories be? And he suggests Biles, PT, or Miles as potential kind of subjects, you know, for a future Paris Olympics movie, which I kind of see all of those kind of working well. So you got to have an underdog story. You've got to have like a big, you know, moments of achievement at the end. You know, you got to build up to that. You know, you got to have some trials and tribulations in there.
Yeah, and you mentioned before the show, like we'll be covering some of the ground we covered in the sports episode, but there does have to be some underdog element, which unfortunately in Olympic sports, underdogs, I'm sure generally don't win too often, even with this being the best of the best. But I mean, unfortunately, the answer that readily came to mind for me, because conservatives on Facebook cannot stop posting about it, is I think Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh are going to make a movie about a man pretending to be a woman to beat women up at the Olympics, even though that boxer is a woman or was born intersex or whatever.
Yeah,
she was assigned female.
Imam Khalif. Yeah. So she's. I mean, where she's from? I can't remember which North African country.
It's Algeria, I think.
Algeria, thank you. But gender reassignment surgery is illegal there. You know, there's no way it's happened. So.
Now I suppose if you're intersex, assignment is fine. It's the reassignment.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's just so easily, obviously, I mean, from a dad, producing a birth certificate and everything like that. But basically, when like a malicious rumor is out there, and then people are convinced, they're not being told the full story. There's some kind of a massive conspiracy. It's the world we live in now. A lot of people have been talking about, she is, she is her assigned birth gender, but she's got a testosterone abnormality, which, I mean, plenty of athletes have abnormalities that give them advantages.
Sure.
That's why I often get into it. I mean, a lot of people talk about like Michael Phelps, his lung capacity and his reach. It's not a normal lung capacity or reach for someone, but it's played into why he was so good at swimming, for so long.
Yeah, and those web toes too. I mean, phew,
Yeah.
real advanced. Now, reading the concerns and controversies at the 2024 Olympics article, I just saw that there was a surfing judge removal. He posted a picture on social media of himself posing with an Australian competitor, one of the judges, so he was removed by the International Surfing Association. So I think that'd be a fun, lighthearted story.
Yeah.
Pure
That's
comedy
like
potential.
that's like Hatt's this boxer getting all the grief for stuff that isn't true, compared to the Olympic committees ignoring actual offences of one of their athletes, and still letting him compete. That there is a convicted sex offender in the Olympics.
Yeah, that's not great. But yeah, I mean, I'm always wanting something more fun, but that it is unbelievable how many people suddenly care about women's sports when they are able to complain about it. At least over here, our women's basketball is getting a lot bigger because of like stars and good players and marketing.
Yeah.
This is not the way.
Same over here. Women's football is massive now because the last few major tournaments they've been doing so much better than the men's international team, which is great to see. And they've got two finals in a few years. They're doing great. So that's obviously one good thing about the Olympics, as an event, creating these new stars and inspiring for future generations and everything, and these how those stories are told, obviously how the broadcast, but also how those stories are retold, through the medium of film, is a big part of that.
Yeah, and I mean, my movie. Pretty much this story is widespread amongst people who were born afterwards because of this film. That's kind of how the story got around. I mean, obviously it was big at the time, but I'm sure people our age, they think of the Jamaican bobsled team.
I mean, when I first saw this, I think I must have been, I was a kid. I must have been a young teenager, I suppose. But I didn't know it was a true story, until the stuff at the end, So it's one of those stories that's so bizarre. It could only be true, really, because you wouldn't make it up.
Yeah, I mean, well, you say all that. I checked an article from Olympics.com, and they said basically nothing from the film is true. What is true about Cool Runnings is that the Jamaicans went to the bobsleigh competition at the Calgary Olympics in 1988 and crashed and competed as well.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything else is not real, including the characters. John Candy's character, not real. All of the ways in which things came about, none of it was real. And I think my biggest criticism of this film is that it's a missed opportunity to not make, it doesn't have to be a drama necessarily, but a real sports movie about this story, and not something aimed at kids that sort of needs to simplify and make things caricaturish and silly. Yeah.
I mean, it's something about Winter Olympics movies, especially, that seems to inspire this kind of take on them. Maybe it's because most of the events feature in them, they're kind of a bit more niche. You can possibly have a bit more fun. You can take a bit more creative license with them. I think a few years ago we had Eddie the Eagle. Just one of our more bizarre athletes from the UK. The worst Olympic ski jumper ever, and basically that's again used the real events very much as a starting point, and then just very much embellished stuff around that. You know, got Hugh Jackman, to play his coach, and gave him a tragic backstory, which he didn't have really.
Yeah,
Stuff
John
like that.
Candy, whoever he plays, in real life, their coach was not an Olympic cheater. He was just some dude who had competed in bobsledding.
Yeah.
Or bobsleighing. I don't. Apparently, it's bobsleigh and not bobsled. So that is something I've learned. Yeah, but the movie. Well, I'll start with the real story. The real story is that there were these two American guys drinking, and they said, "Man, wouldn't it be cool if we could make Jamaican sprinters into a bobsleigh team?" And so they tried that. Nobody was interested, and so they went to the military. And that's what I think is cool. Is like these guys were not athletes; they were soldiers, and they went and got 3 dudes, turned them into competitors. So the first time they got into a bobsled or sleigh or whatever was September of 1987. The games were in February of 1988. So like that is an insane turnaround for people who are not training for a sport day in and day out. And yeah, they went and competed. They did crash. They competed in the 2-man and the 4-man. Obviously, the film focuses on the 4-man, but they actually found the 4th guy at the Olympics. It was the brother of one of the other 3, and they said, "Hey, you want to come do it?" And he said yes, and they taught him everything they knew in 3 days. And Devin Harris, when he tells that story, says, "And we didn't know much." And so, yeah, they went out, they competed 3 times, but unfortunately crashed on that 3rd one and were disqualified. You can watch that video on YouTube of that final run. It is terrifying.
Don't they use like heavily edited footage of that final run in the film itself?
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know and hadn't read that, but I'm sure it's tough to get like good video footage of that sort of competing. But the film itself, it was directed by, and this is kind of important because it reflects one of the character storylines, Nepo baby John Turtletaub. His father was a writer and producer for like a lot of comedy shows throughout like the 60s and 70s, and I could not tell you a single thing Turtletaub has directed other than this movie. Let's see. Let's go look at it. It is.
He's done some subpar action films, I think.
National Treasure, Book of Secrets, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, The Meg. He did The Meg. I mean, we're not talking an auteur here, but someone who spent their whole life around show business.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously has got a good working relationship with Nicolas Cage, so it can't be all bad.
It's a shame Nicolas Cage was not the coach in this movie, because John Candy, he's fine, but obviously he died like the next year. This is probably a film that people around our age, they think of John Candy, they picture him in Cool Runnings as the coach who cheated, but didn't really cheat in real life. So kind of the premise is there's a sprinter named Darius, and he obviously wants to sprint. That's kind of what Jamaica was known for and continues to be. Apparently they were not super nationally or internationally known for it until Usain Bolt, although it was within the country a premier sport. Yeah. And so Darius goes out to race, and he meets these other 2 racers, and they all fall down, get tripped up, and are unable to go to the Olympics. And so instead they find out that Darius finds out his dad was friends with a guy who lives in Jamaica, who he's an American dude. He competed in the 1972 and 80 Olympics as a bobsledder, and he's going to turn them into the best sled team in the world. And one of his buddies, his name is, I already forgot it, Senka. His name is Senka Coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna be the other guy because he does the roller derby thing. Not roller derby, but it's like push cart derby or something. And apparently that is actually how the two Americans, as they drank and plotted getting Jamaica into the Olympics, they saw the push carts going on and they were like, okay, well, I mean, we could just adapt that basically. And so Doris, he wants to live up to his dad. The other dude, there's Yul Brynner. He looks like bulky Kanye West. And then there's Junior. Junior, that's him. He's the impetus for all of them tripping and falling at the qualifier. And then his dad is rich. He wants him to go be a lawyer in Miami or something.
Yeah. I've never noticed before that the character's called Yul Brenner, obviously not Brenner. So, but it's like it's good. Why give him a joke name like that? It's not even like a nickname, is it?
No, it is his real name. And so basically the plan is we're gonna teach. John Candy is gonna teach these four guys how to do it, and so. I think the most interesting part of the film is when they go to the qualifiers and they don't have any equipment, and so they have to, go through and try and acquire stuff. And that's a real part of the story is they were struggling with money. What the guy who kind of came up with the idea was the one personally financing them. But even when they got to the Olympics, they were selling shirts and gear and stuff, trying to just get money to eat. And I know especially for the Winter Olympics, reading more about that, there's even a greater sort of gap between, what it costs to become a competitor in winter sports versus summer sports.
Yeah, because anyone can start running, can't they? That doesn't really cost you anything. But yeah, certain sports, and probably most of them in the Olympics, do require specialist equipment, don't they?
Yeah, like you need snowboards, you need skis, like those cost hundreds of dollars potentially, not to mention the travel to go, stay at a ski resort for, obviously these competitions are favoring richer countries and more privileged athletes. And on the whole, the Olympics favors more privileged people to begin with, but even more so in the winter, I'd say. And so, they do qualify. They need to run a 1 minute and 2 second time. They do like 58 seconds, and that's a really fun moment. I don't know what their qualifiers were like in real life. I don't know if they had. I don't know if they had to do any in real life, to be honest. I watched, a whole talk from Devin Harris, who was kind of the third guy. He wasn't competing with the 2-man team, but he talked about how, like. I don't know. He talked about how basically their first time doing this was at the Olympics. So I don't know if they did qualifiers or not. And, part of the...
No, because the thing is, it's normal with Olympics. You kind of go through various kind of heats, don't you? And kind of it's only like the top, usually the fastest like contenders, to get to represent their countries and everything. Yeah, but yeah, I've no idea with this particular story. I've got like down here how they did at the actual Olympics, but not anything building up to it.
Yeah, because how many countries are competing in the bobsleigh? Like the Jamaican team ended up coming in. They DNF'd and not finish, but they did also technically come in 31st from the article I read from Olympics.com.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So apparently it's 26 contestants for the event, and they finished. So this was in the. Yes, this is actually 7 minutes up. Yeah. So 20. So I presume that's what the building towards. There'll be 26 places. And they're kind of like the bottom of that, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe not 31st. I don't know where they got that number from. But yeah, they. Qualify, which is a great moment, and I was like, okay, now, the Olympics. The Olympics is the whole point of this. And so they're off to Calgary for the Winter Olympics, and they get there, and they get into a bar fight for some reason there's like a Texas Roadhouse that all of the Olympic teams are at, and they get into a fight with somebody. And then Doris has this big moment where he's like, you don't see Switzerland drinking and fighting, so we need to be fully focused. And so they have another montage. The first montage, obviously, because there has to be one as they learn to do it. There's some silly moments in it, but like mostly it's them doing pull-ups and push-ups and running. I don't really get how most of it relates to the bobsledding, but eventually they do, go compete. They find out about the coach's cheating scandal. He had put like weights in the front of his sleigh, and I don't know how. Like they don't inspect it beforehand. Like
yes. It's a bit of an oversight from by the officials, doesn't it?
Yes, that would feature in the fake controversies page on their Wikipedia article. But yeah, one of the judges, knows John Candy's character, and so he's very disappointed. But they do get in. They're able to compete, and then they kind of get off to a slow start in their first run. And then I don't remember if they have the second one, but then finally they do the ultimate one where they've kind of gotten everything put together. They're working well as a team, and then they crash. Which in the movie, going in, I didn't know. By the way, never saw this before. This was my first time, so that I'm aware of. I didn't know that they crashed in real life, so I was like, oh, okay, this is really over the top. But no, that's really what makes this, aside from the sort of novelty of a tropical island country competing. They also crashed, and we're very lucky to not be injured or face any sort of physical consequences beyond disqualification from the Olympics. And everybody's watching back home. I did like the intercutting between the people on the island who weren't really characters, but they were all sort of present, and then the competitors at the Olympics. But they boldly carry their sled across the finish line, which didn't happen in real life. They just walked across. And then the movie's over, and Junior's dad is like, son, I respect you for being in the Olympics. And that's it. The movie's kind of over. It's a kid's movie. It's a Disney movie. It's very cartoonish and silly. But I do think that, obviously they went on to compete further, both in real life, and the movie talks about that in the epilogue. And they never medaled, but in 1994, in real life, the Jamaican team finished 14th ahead of the U.S. at 15, ahead of Russia, ahead of Italy. That was really cool. But, this movie and the real life story, there's kind of the racial component to it, right? Where it's, it's weird that a tropical island is competing, but there's also a tone of, it's weird that black people are at the Winter Olympics. You know what I mean? But that is also a real life fish out of water element, that the Jamaicans were not used to cold. They didn't know how to bobsled. They were very inexperienced. And so, I read a few papers. One was from the Washington Post, where a half Jamaican writer was talking about like their experiences, where they would say, oh, my mom's Jamaican. And people would say the little chant about its bobsled time that they say before they go. They would just say that to him. And that's kind of weird. It's weird to me that people don't think it's strange for Australia and New Zealand to be competing in Winter Olympic sports. I wonder what the difference between Jamaica and Australia is.
I suppose New Zealand at least has mountains, so.
That's fair. I don't picture New Zealand and picture snow sports. I picture New Zealand and picture sheep. Or Lord of the Rings, but especially with Australia, I picture deserts and snakes and stuff. So, the only reason that people aren't like, boy, it sure is weird Australia's there, is they have more financial means and also a larger country of white people, because people don't think it's weird for white people to be doing winter sports.
It's weird that Australia compete in Eurovision than it is they compete in the Winter Olympics.
That is also weird. I didn't know they did. I thought it was weird that like Israel does. So yeah, interesting all around. What Eurovision? Maybe it's just not America Vision. Because we would win every year, obviously. Yeah, but looking at the way that the story is portrayed in American media, and this in particular, it's tough to see where is the, oh man, these Jamaicans out on their winter adventure and not taking them seriously so much, versus just recognizing the reality of the underdog and the lack of experience.
Yeah, it's like it's a universal theme, isn't it? As you say, the underdog, and not judging the book by its cover, and anyone can surprise you if they put their mind to it, I mean, when I first saw this, I wasn't aware it was a true story, or kind of true-ish. But I think if this is your starting point, then you go do some reading around it about the true events, and then maybe take an interest in kind of the unlikely competitors in this sport in general. It can probably enlighten you a bit, and it's probably spark like a bit more of a deeper interest in in these events in general. So
yeah, and all of those components are a reason I would have preferred to see a more adult film, at least, where they could have actually gotten into the I'm sure that there were people who had, sort of racist reception to the first all-black team at a Winter Olympics. The first African-American woman to compete in the Olympics was not until like 1980. I learned that. It's just there is a component to this film where it's naively and sort of cartoonishly treating Jamaicans and Jamaican heritage. I'm pretty sure these actors aren't Jamaican, but they just walk around going, "Hey man," and wearing, Rastafarian colors, but they never go into like what Rasta is. And I'm pretty sure Devin Harris said none of them smoked marijuana. He said that. I don't know if that's true or not, but
it's looking like, just looking down, it's looking like they're all American.
So I mean, but at the same time, like, this has to be an inspirational story for non-white kids to be watching it, going, oh wow, I mean, these are people that broke a barrier. These are people who went and did something on an incredible athletic scale that were not athletes. Really, when we think of what an athlete is, they have a job of athlete. They had a very small amount of time to learn an entire sport, and then they competed at an Olympic level. And so I just wish there had been a more serious take on this story that really put into context, like, how incredible of an achievement that is, and what all they had to do, both financially and physically and mentally, to get there.
Yeah, it just needs a bit more bites to it, doesn't it? It's kind of best contrast, with the relative achievements, that they do have at the end, and there would be plenty of space for that, as you say, if they more basically confronted, the kind of racist ideas and attitudes, and even, as you say, if they really did pick up their final team member when they were there, that's a good part of the story. That's kind of idea you'd probably think would be an element they'd make up for the film, but if that actually happened and they're not really utilising that's a bit of a missed opportunity. I think it would be a nice little kind of saving them, at the 11th hour, before competing. Where are we going to get this guy? Oh, he's there. Oh, that's looking.
Yeah, and they could have had if you're going to just make stuff up, have a fourth person and they drop out or get sick or something. And then also there's a real lack of female characters. There are women in it, like they're physically present, but
Yeah.
you know, when I think Winter Olympics, the first thing I think of is figure skating. Like, I don't know, that's just me. Like,
Yeah.
it's strange that there isn't like a love interest character. There isn't like a, you know, oh, I can't wait for you to be back from the Olympics so we can blah blah. You know,
Yeah.
there's virtually nothing in terms of women, and that's bizarre. Like, because it's a movie. Women watch movies, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. 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 Because I've not seen it in a long time, but I can't remember. Do they show like their family supporting them or anything like that?
Just
Their significant others? Or...
just like, have you seen Triple X3? When he okay, there's a scene where he goes to fix their TV so they can watch Brazil versus Germany. They're just watching back home in like a you know, a tropical looking little restaurant or something on a tiny TV. And that you see women there in like head wraps and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and everybody's going, hey, look at our team, man. By the way, all of this reminds me, we have a cereal mascot here, or had, for Apple Jacks, who was a Jamaican, like, piece of cereal or something. He's a stick of cinnamon. That's it, because he says cinnamon is the winnaman. The only other real Jamaican American sort of influence, aside from like Bob Marley, that I could think of.
Yeah.
By the way, that's another fun joke. Bob Slay, we've only heard of Bob Marley. I don't know if that's in the movie, but that's what real Devin Harris said. Yeah, like the only other Jamaican influence in the U.S. I could think of is Miss Cleo, who was also a fake Jamaican, or a Jafaican, if you will. So...
Well, you talk about this Hermes from Futurama.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Although
again a fake Jamaican. So I think Phil Lamar is definitely just American.
Yeah. So, you know, it's fairly enjoyable for like a kid's Disney movie, and I've been watching a lot of those lately just because they're fun. But you know, when I think of this story, the real story of it, I would love for... I mean, it doesn't have to be a Jamaican or even Caribbean director. Just like get a non-white director to go make a serious version of this story, please. Like,
I mean, I don't know if we've ever had like a proper documentary about this event. Going like the news coverage of it at the time. Because sometimes you have like, these remarkable stories that are told in both documentary and like feature film kind of form. You know, like I think of Next Goal Wins. You know. Taika Waititi's more fictionalized version was far inferior to the original documentary version of that story. So maybe this is like long overdue, like a proper in-depth documentary telling. Interviewing all the surviving people who are involved and everything. That might be cool.
Yeah, when you go to the Jamaica National Bobsleigh Team in popular culture part of their wiki article, it talks about the reggae parody song Jamaican Bobsled, this movie, the Futurama episode Xmas Story, the bobsled song from 2014, and a video game based on no particular year's team was released for Wii in 2010, titled Sled Shred, featuring the Jamaican bobsled team. So... It appears there has not. Now, one thing I did learn through all of this, the first African bobsleigh team was in 2018. The Nigerian team competed. And that was really cool. Jamaica still sends like 2-man and 2-woman teams. I think their first women's team was in 2018 as well. So they also revolutionized like teams using sprinters to push the sleigh. So like when you think about what this team meant, like it kind of changed the sport too, which I don't know if they could have put that in the 1993 movie, but
yeah, and it seems an obvious idea if you think about it, doesn't it? Get a really good boost off the starting line. It kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and then obviously you don't even need to have actual sprinters. Get people in the military. I'm surprised the U.S. does not send military personnel to compete at the Olympics. That sounds like something we would do just out of like jingoistic pride or something.
maybe.
Yeah. Well, Sam, I think yours is a bit more serious than mine, although, um,
It is.
yeah. I mean, Cool Runnings, if you haven't seen it, I guess watch it, but like,
Yeah, it's a fun movie, a good watch. Just expects anything kind of. I was going to say don't expect anything groundbreaking. I suppose it was groundbreaking in a way, but don't expect anything that's
cinematically.
going to blow you away. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a decent little movie.
Yep.
Yeah, so my film is The Swimmers from 2022. It was a Netflix movie, and I'm not sure, to be honest, how kind of widely seen it was when it was released at the time. I mean, it got some kind of awards recognition, but
What was it, a Netflix release?
yes,
Okay.
yes, it's still on there. I don't know if it got any kind of a cinema release.
Apparently, it was released in select cinemas on November 11th, 2022.
Okay,
Yeah, and premiered at Toronto International.
right. Yeah, this is the true story of two teenage Syrian professional swimmers and refugees, Yusra Madini and her sister Sarah Madini. So they're played by, again, real life sisters, Natalie Issa and Manal Issa. And while they're trying to escape the civil war in Syria, and make a nightmarish journey to Germany. They end up having to swim alongside a sinking dinghy full of other refugees trying to get across the Aegean Sea to Greece. So yeah, they volunteer to get out of the boat and into the water to lighten it enough to avoid it going down, basically, because it's this rickety inflatable thing and it springs a leak, and yeah, they probably would have died in the middle of the ocean had they not.
And
made that brave decision.
Is this based on a true story?
Yes, this is a true story. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yes, so they did that, and then they eventually they arrive in Berlin, which is their eventual destination because they've got family in Germany, and they're looking for a new life and they want to reunite with their family back in Syria, but they end up facing like an agonizing wait for their applications to be processed, because they're one of many millions of refugees, obviously trying to find a new life in Europe, and all the while their dream of competing for their country in the 2016 Rio Olympics is rapidly slipping away. So yes, basically that. It's girls escaping war to pursue their dreams and to have a decent life, but go through unimaginable hardship. Let's talk about the real people, Yusra and Sarah. So Yusra did end up competing at both the Rio and the Tokyo Games for the refugee team. So because Syria understandably didn't have like a sports body at that point, when they go through their civil war, they didn't have much in the way of infrastructure. So
what is the refugee team?
So any obviously displaced athletes, from war-torn countries, basically could apply to be part of this special team that they created, and it's still going. It was competing again this year. So it's an international team made up of displaced athletes. So she competed in Rio and Tokyo before retiring, and she's now an ambassador for refugees and a reporter. She actually reported on the progress of the refugee team this year at in Paris, which is cool. And her older sister Sarah ended up returning back to the refugee camp that they stayed in Lesbos in Greece. But she was arrested in 2018 while trying to help more migrants arrive in Greece, and she basically went through a hellish trial where she was accused. She received spurious charges of human trafficking and espionage by the Greek government for basically helping out refugees trying to arrive in Greece.
So human trafficking, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. Trafficking helpless people into a country that doesn't want them. Yeah.
Very much a letter of the law crime there.
I know, yeah. So yeah, she faced a really protracted court battle, went on for about 5 years. It was only found dismissed in 2023. She unfortunately has she's retired from public life now. She doesn't give interviews. I think she just has such a horrible experience going through this, that she's just living a life, normal life. Um,
By the way,
this
reading
film,
about the refugee team, at the
yes,
time, people from South Sudan were competing. Uh,
yes,
there's one Ethiopian and the
yeah,
Democratic Republic of the Congo. Um,
yeah.
so there you go.
Yeah, but basically, yeah, a lot of kind of Central African nations, obviously, they're dominated by warlords and various kind of violent conflicts going on. So yeah, you get a lot of obviously people trying to escape that. I mean, in this film, one of the migrants in their group that is trying to travel, trying to get to safety. I mean, there's the real kind of international collective. So you've got the two Syrian sisters. You've got a guy from Afghanistan. You've got a couple of African women. I think both of them. I think one of them's traveling with her husbands, but just trying to escape kind of war. And another one, she's obviously escaping a very abusive kind of relationship with the father of her child. So um, this film got. I mean, personally, I was blown away by it. If I'm honest, I'm not sure what I was expecting, but I was super engaged with it, and it really kind of puts you through like the emotional ringer. Not to the extent of like putting you on the ground in terms of like the conflicts in Syria. I mean, if you really want a proper experience of that, you should watch this documentary for Sama, which was nominated for an Oscar, and that's basically home movies. Essentially, it's this young woman basically documenting the civil war in Syria over like, about 5 years. Um, at one point, she has a child herself, and these video diaries basically become her kind of preserving the memories of this time for her daughter. Basically, she doesn't know, obviously how far through that going to get. So I'd recommend that, if you want a full experience of that. I mean, the way this film can presents it as like suppose Syrians trying to get on with ordinary life as best they can while this chaos is erupting around them. I mean, there's an early scene where these two sisters, they're out at a club. There's like a rooftop kind of dance floor, and they're just happily, dancing their little hearts out, to titanium, all the while, kind of in the background, you see these rockets, firing over like buildings, like fires spring up and stuff. It's like that contrast, between, ordinary life and what's about to be taken away from them, basically. The two sisters, they're in the film and in real life, they were trained by their dad, who was a swimmer himself, and I don't think he never quite achieved kind of what he wanted to achieve. Never quite got to compete, for his national team. So he kind of almost lives through those dreams through his daughters. So he's a tough coach, but he kind of loves and supports them dearly. And that's his whole world basically. He wants his daughters to compete on the world stage for their country. Early on, he just says, "I'll be the first dad to have 3 daughters swimming at the Olympics." So it's the 2 who are actually swimming at this point, and then he's got like a smaller daughter, who I presume he'll be training, when she's old enough.
By the way, I wonder if people think it's weird for desert countries to compete in swimming, or
Yeah,
I bet
I
not.
mean, it's a bizarre like concept, isn't it? Like just because of like the makeup of your country or the landscape you've got, you can't do anything outside that. It's a
Or just the
strange idea.
stereotype of it, because like
Yeah,
there's snow in Iran, like
yeah, of course, yeah, yeah. I really love the look of this film. So it's kind of very kind of classical, kind of in terms of framing and the way it's filmed and stuff. The pool scenes are very well kind of some great underwater photography and stuff. There's a great match cut where you see Yusra kind of collapsing on a bed exhausted, and it cuts straight from her head hitting a pillow to her head hitting the water the next day, which is training again. Come to, and that's really cool.
well, and by the way, for the structure of the film, is the
Yeah,
story of their like going to Greece,
Yeah,
or is
yeah.
that like intercut, or is that just
No.
part, like the
It's
middle
it,
portion?
yeah. It's very classical. It's chronological. There's no like flashback, flash forward really. I mean, she has a bit of PTSD at one point. She has flashbacks, but it's like a different thing. Yeah, so it's pretty much chronological. Yeah, obviously beginning their life in Syria, then their decision to leave and try to get to Germany, to unite their family, and then the nightmarish journey. So yeah, the central kind of posh, right in the middle of the film basically is there they reach getting from Turkey to Greece, across the Aegean Sea, and then they've got to get basically smuggled through the various other European countries between Greece and Germany. So they've got to they're bundled into the back of lorries. They walk on railway lines. They've got to climb over like a border fence, chased by dogs at one point. So it's a real kind of a nail biter. I mean that main scene in the middle of the crossing is just, it's absolutely hellish. It's not only they give all their money to this smuggler, and he says, "Oh, I'll just go get my boat." And they've got to wait like half a day, and he comes back with this inflatable thing that he just sort of kind of pumps up, on the shoreline. Just this really kind of ropey looking thing. They all pile in, barely get the motor running, and like halfway into the journey, it basically it breaks down, and then night falls, and a storm hits, and it just goes from bad to worse. And that's like the most kind of visceral scene of how it's captured. It's very much like very close and handheld and stuff like that.
Uh,
Um,
to add a little lightheartedness, I
yeah,
now have learned that there is an island of Lesbos, and that's where we
yes,
get the word lesbian. And
yes,
Sappho
it
lived
is.
there, which is
Yeah,
the best part.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a nice little satirical element to it, that the contrast, this contrast between like ignorant kind of, well, not ignorant, but Europeans who don't want to face up their reality, just poke their head out, and no kind of empathy, for anyone going through some tough times, so they arrive at this refugee camp in Lesbos, and everyone's struggling, to get what they need, a change of clothes, food and water and everything like that, even to have a shower. And at one point they just said, "Well, I'm sick of waiting," and they waltz kind of next door. It's just down the road from the refugee camp, and it's this like 5-star resort, just been enjoyed by those rich Europeans. And they just walk up to like the beach, kind of the beach bit of the resort, and you use the showers there. And they kind of, this is like one of the few kind of like house moments in the film. They said, right, we've got to look like rich asshole Europeans. So they kind of they tie up their shirts as like tank tops, kind of muss their hair up, and kind of put their they've got like a satchel, like purse, keeping all their money. They kind of put that up front, to, you've got to show off, like we're showing off how much money we've got. And they kind of like strut in, and just about manage to carry it off. I mean, it's not like an absolute. It's harrowing in part, but I'd say kind of the chemistry of like the two leads kind of really carries it through. I think being real sisters kind of helps, and their kind of their natural kind of relationship, and like the way they kind of make fun of each other, and they have these in jokes and stuff like that, and they mess around. It's kind of really helps. There's a very pointed. I presume they're intentionally referencing Gone with the Wind, because there's this point where they first arrive in Greece, and they've staggering up the hill from the sea, absolutely exhausted, and they kind of tear off the life jackets and throw on the ground, and then the camera keeps pulling back and back and back, and it's like thousands and thousands of abandoned life jackets just scattered like around the area. And it's basically very much like that scene in Gone with the Wind, after the big battling of like all the bodies, like basically the ground's like just soaked in red, and it's like saying this, it's like the ground's soaked in red and yellow, but it's all like life jackets, like the sign of like the extent of like the migrant crisis in Europe.
I guess
Um,
on the plus side, that is a sign of like people making it, though. So
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
bit more
So
hopeful than dead people.
yeah. So against all the odds, miraculously, say they did make it to their destination, and just through boldness, basically. They get registered in Germany, but then they kind of the house and like this big, so it's like a big aircraft hangar, basically, where they're housing like all the refugees, essentially, while they wait for their applications to be processed. And they basically find like a local pool and can just march in there, and there's a swimming club there, and they just march up to the coach and say, "We're from Syria. We posted these times back in our country. We want to compete at the Olympics. Will you help us?" And the coach, who's Sven, who was a real German Sven something on Sven. Oh God, I've got the wrong page up.
Let's see.
It doesn't give him his full name on Wikipedia, but he was a real German Olympian. But yeah, just missed out. So you get your medal. So again, it's a bit like the John Candy thing, but actually based in reality. The coach really was like a former Olympian. Yes, so he reluctantly decides to take him on just when he sees how promising they are.
Well, and I'm sure there's not a scene where he's like a degenerate gambler drinking his days away.
No. He's a real chill dude. He's played by the guy who played the safecracker in Army of the Dead. If you remember that. But yes,
it's one too many Zack Snyder film references for me.
So they get their chance, but he basically says, "You don't have Syria does not have an Olympic committee at the minute." But they are forming this special kind of refugee team. If you want to compete for that, we've got a chance. And at this point, Sarah has basically kind of turned her back on like the sport. She's looking ahead at the next stage in her life. She's just going out, kind of making friends in Berlin, but really thinking about getting back home or helping out the refugees. Whereas Yusra is still very much kind of in the game, and they say to that offer, she says, "We're not refugees, we have a home." And it's almost like this kind of indignity of wanting to compete for your country and just being placed in this like almost like second-rate team. At one point, they're speaking to their dad back home on the phone. He says something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm so proud that you're finding an Olympian, even if it is just for the refugee team." So she's not saying to be mean, but it's almost like that unconscious bias coming through. It's like, "Oh yeah, it's great, but it's not quite what we discussed, what we trained for."
Yeah, well, and it kind of shows something similar to Cool Runnings, where like dominant culture is the one giving the idea of what Syria is, rather than these Syrians being able to define for themselves that they are Syrian and will compete.
I mean, it's fascinating actually that again, obviously with the real women with these real backgrounds, it reflects in this film that obviously Syria is still a very obviously very conservative Islamic nation, and this dad is supporting his two daughters, to do a sport which almost requires them to be immodest, to wear a swimming costume, and swim up and down, in front of spectators. That must have been an interesting conversation. I wonder if he ever had to justify that to the authorities. I mean, there's like an early scene where they're getting on a bus. And these soldiers get on, and they're doing just like a random inspection, inspecting everyone's IDs and everything, and they get patted down, they get gropes, obviously it's and they get a few remarks, as they're going about their life in Syria, when they're coming back at night, going home, and they get catcalled and stuff. So that is kind of referenced. I mean, their parents only let them make the journey to Germany if they agree to let their older male cousin accompany them, almost like a chaperone. But he's pretty chill dude. He's quite liberal. He's into his clubbing, and his partying. He basically wants to go to Germany to try out the clubs in Berlin.
And by the way, not the now non-existent Olympic sport of club swinging. You mean going to clubs?
Yeah, dancing. Yeah. But he has a bit of a hard time. But obviously, he's escorting them. He's protecting them in theory. He gets his moments on the boat as well. because conveniently he has a his background. He studied electrical engineering. So when the the engine cuts out, he says it's almost like is anyone in the house a doctor? Yes. Yeah, because he's got that background in engineering. He's got to kind of make his way from like one end of a sinking dinghy to another as quickly as possible, and kind of not have it capsize. So he has his he fulfills his purpose there. He has a harder time when he gets to Germany because he can't. They're not allowed to work until their application process until they're given their visas. So yeah, he's basically just sitting around and not what to do with his life, and feeling a bit helpless. And he says, I think he says at one point, if I you two kind of doing these amazing things, you've got this thing you're so good at, so passionate at. I've got nothing. I can't even swim. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, kind of thing. So the film, a bit like Cool Runnings, things are exaggerated. So there's a bit of dramatic license here and there. The film depicts Yusra Madini achieving a victory at the Rio Olympics. But this was, it's not clear in the film. They kind of leave it as that. It's almost like implied, she kind of won a race and got a medal, but yeah, she didn't, unfortunately. This was a heat race, this just qualifies.
Why would they imply that if it didn't happen?
Yeah, I know. But it's like the dramatic crescendo, it's like the high point of her arc, she wins something, she wins a race, So yeah, this is a qualifying round, and though she did do well in it, she didn't qualify for the semi-finals. So in the overall competition, she placed 41st out of 45 participants, apparently. But still an achievement. Because basically the Olympics is this like almost unachievable kind of thing in the distance. They've got to get through this kind of horrific journey to actually get to, and they both do get there. And even if it wasn't the result they wanted, they're not competing for their country and not achieving quite what they wanted. It was, an achievement. I would say, very, very few of the other athletes could even comprehend that, I would argue.
Yeah. I mean, just think about like the strength it takes to push a boat filled with people. That is insane.
Yeah.
For hours.
Let's just they tied ropes themselves, to kind of to stop drifting off and everything. I don't think that actually provided much momentum, but they're literally just to swim through the night alongside of a boat. It's just, can't imagine it.
It's hard enough to like push a golf cart in neutral, like.
Yeah, yeah. So the director is Sally El Hosseini. She's a Welsh Egyptian director. So. And this film got the BAFTA Cymru, the Welsh BAFTAs. It got a Welsh BAFTA for Best Director in 2023, and it was nominated at the main film BAFTAs for Outstanding British Film. So apparently, Manal Issa, who plays Yusra, who obviously has to be the stronger. Actually, no, sorry, I got the wrong one around. Sorry, Manal Issa plays Sarah, so she doesn't get to swim competition or anything, but obviously they're both shown kind of swimming earlier on in the film. Apparently she didn't know how to swim at all before this film, so yeah, she went special for this.
Which is weird. That like, does that mean her sister knew how to swim well enough that she didn't need to learn?
Yeah, and maybe that's the reason why she plays the sister who gets into the competition. Is like the strongest swimmer, like the main athletic hope of the family. But apparently after this, she did have some criticisms of it after release. She did say it wasn't like completely negative, but I think she said kind of be aware of this film. She talks about it being talks about some accusation about Orientalism and othering kind of Syrian kind of migrants. And,
I read the article from the Middle East Eye. It is extensive criticism of this. Like from what you've said, like good movie.
Yeah. I think possibly she kind of started off kind of obviously, like working on the film, proud of the role and everything. But I think in after the fact, I think she just became a bit disheartened. She still thought the film could have done more, basically. In terms of like the Orientalism, yeah, there is certain amount of otherness. It's very much like a European perspective of like the migrant crisis in Europe, and obviously, yes, the director has like a Middle Eastern heritage, but she is British, so it's again, there's only so much she can speak to that.
Would Welsh people be
And,
offended by saying that they're British?
no, they are British. They are legally British, just
That
like
is
the
fair.
Scots. So
That is fair.
yeah. She's. In terms of like it being apolitical, yeah, it doesn't get into like the cause of the war and doesn't come down strong on either side. And like I say, if you really want a proper view of kind of the Syrian civil war and kind of everything that goes into it, and literally within touching distance of like the horrors, just watch a documentary like For Summer. But this isn't what this film is. It's very much like a kind of just following this group of characters on this journey that represents a similar journey that so many millions of people have had to undertake so far. So I can't get it. I suppose I can't speak to how it would play to like a Syrian audience, but I think it's fairly balanced. I think the points where they choose to inject that like horror are really effective. So like I said, the scene crossing the sea, a scene earlier on where like one of Yusra's practices back home in the pool, and she's just midway through the race, and then the pool starts shaking, and then a bomb literally comes through the roof of the pool. It's literally it's like the perfect like visual like indicator of like life is never going to be the same. That normality is gone now. This is going to be our day to day from now on. The real Yusra Mardini, she kind of commented after her time as an athlete, and it's kind of linked to this film. Really, she said, "After the Olympics, I realised that it's not just my story anymore. I realised that my responsibility is to raise awareness and bring hope to millions of refugees around the world, and speak for all those who do not have a voice." And that's something that kind of this film does well. I think 'cause again, it's like they're all kind of, I suppose, archetypes, standing in for kind of various people who've had to flee war zones and flee the horrors of their homelands. But I think it's a good reason that this group, this group of refugees that we follow, they kind of hail from like different countries and different circumstances, different reasons for leaving. And it's just showing like a cross section of all those different kinds of stories. And yeah, it might not be 100% a one-to-one kind of relationship exactly what's happened to so many people, but I think it's a good starting point if it kind of if it prompts people to support these people still fleeing conflict zones, take an interest in it and speak up about it, and then all the better for it. I think it's a powerful movie, and yeah, maybe Hollywoodized to an extent, but I think that goes for in general. I think you've got to bring the audience on side and make it kind of make it compelling and relatable. I saw one review kind of compare it to it negatively say it's like Disneyfied the migrant crisis, which I completely disagree with. I think it takes some narrative shortcuts and kind of compresses some things, but other than that, I think I found it quite powerful.
Yeah, I mean, so going back to Manal Issa's criticisms, like
Yeah,
they run sort of similar to things that I thought about Cool Runnings, where they didn't
yeah,
cast Syrian
yeah,
actors.
yeah,
Apparently, they
yeah,
were
yeah.
paying the Syrian and Turk extras like $10 a
Yeah,
day.
yeah. That's not great. Yeah. Obviously that's worthy of criticism. Yeah. I mean, in terms of the cast, yeah, obviously ideally, yeah, they would have had Syrian acts in the lead, but obviously having two sisters, the ones to play have cast real sisters play sisters who have the physical abilities to convincingly portray athletes. It's probably quite a small pool to draw from. because I think they're French Algerian, I think, aren't they, the sisters? So,
Yeah, something like that.
yeah,
But
so
apparently a lot of like, it came down to Egyptian and just
yeah,
kind of North African and Middle
yeah,
Eastern actresses. But
yeah,
and
yeah.
then also the
And
lack of like Arabic dialogue too was a point. And the
I get,
director
and again,
speaks Arabic from what I could tell, so I don't think like
and again, I don't really agree with that, because I think there's a actual reason for that. I don't think that's laziness. That's not Americans can't be bothered to read subtitles, because there is, that they do kind of go in and out of speaking, speaking their well, tell me, I think, sorry, would it be yeah, it would be Arabic, wouldn't it? Yeah, but yeah, yes, going in and out, speaking that. I mean, even the home life, there is some, native dialogue. But the thing is, though, they go to Europe. They're obsessed with like English language cultures. They dance to European and American music. They go into Germany. They're traveling with other people who speak other languages. So it's almost like presented as like English is almost like the common language, through cultural osmosis, and thinking about like where they're going from, where they're going to. English is almost like the common language, and if you get to place like Germany, English is wider spoken. They're more like to speak English than they are to speak German. So I think that's actually there's a narrative reason for so much English dialogue, and I think it kind of it's just the mixed kind of group, international group of the refugees and their cultural touchstones and stuff. I think plenty of people around the world do speak, especially younger people do speak English as like almost like a second language. It's like almost like social language. I'm not saying that's right, but I think that's the way of the world. Kind of English language culture's permeated that much.
well, I think for both of these films, the most important thing is like what do the real people think about it. I know for Cool Runnings, like they like the movie, like they don't think that or at least they don't care about the reductionism and the caricaturism and saying what Yusura said about like she's become a symbol for something greater. I haven't found a quote about it, but I'm sure she's satisfied that the film like achieves that.
So,
And here in America, at least, we don't really we know that there was a migrant crisis in Europe, but like we don't really know what that means or what that looks like. And for American audience, this is a good tool.
And it's still going on, and still misinformation's feeding prejudice against it. I mean, just the past couple of weeks, tragic death of some little girls, and as soon as it got out, this misinformation spread that it was an asylum seeker who committed the crime. It wasn't. That's not true.
What was
But
that?
as soon as that
The school stabbing?
Yeah, the dance class stuff.
Oh yeah,
and this basically fueled like basically some race motivated riots basically in the last couple of weeks over here. But as soon as that message got out there, even though it's not true, we're in this world now. It's like when that's out there, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. Once that information's out there, they're going to believe it, and no matter how many times it's disproven, they're going to say they're not being told the truth. That it's fake news or whatever. So,
by the way, where did that occur?
That occurred in Southport, which is on the east coast of.
I thought so because when I went to Southport's wiki, and they have famous animals and entities listed on there. I was pretty sure it was Southport, but wanted to check.
So it's basically people using that as an excuse, to riot. And I mean, basically a lot of people, going through hard times as around the world. Not enough money. Everything costs more. Everyone's struggling, having to make things go further. Quality of life is taking nosedive. Got to have a scapegoat, and they're using the helpless migrants, just trying to get safety as their scapegoats, that the cause for all of their misery. It's happened before, it will happen again.
Oh, I think there was some kind of British exit over that, but I'm not 100% sure.
Vote Brexit, get our country back.
Oh God. Yeah, racial xenophobic migrant scaring. That's big thing in both of our countries. Love that. Yeah. All right. Do you have anything else on the swimmers, Sam?
No, I'd say yeah, still on Netflix, still readily available. I would highly recommend it. It's yeah, it affected me, and I thought it did a really good job of kind of telling that story with not too many embellishments, and just yeah, it's a good testament to kind of their real journey and kind of what they achieved. So yeah, check it out.
Nice. All right. Well, that is it for our Olympics movies. There's so many out there. I found one called Golden Girl, which is about a Nazi scientist like giving a woman super Olympic ability. Like, there's so many weird movies out there. And then also the super serious ones, and
Yeah,
obviously there's the Nazi propaganda film about the Olympics there in
yeah, yeah.
1936.
Yeah, and then the other side of that coin, you have Race, about Jesse Owens, that was again released on Netflix. I think about a year ago. I think so. Not seen that one. I mean, the classic British one is is obviously Chariots of Fire. I mean, that's it's one of those things that kind of permeates the popular culture. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you know about the running on the beach scene with the Vangelis score. It's almost like a parody of like slow motion running. That's the film you're imitating if you do a film of slow motion running now.
I've completely forgot Hans Zimmer did the score for Cool Runnings. So,
Yes.
um,
Does it sound like a Hans Zimmer score? Do you
it
not remember it?
it was very unnotable, to say the
Yeah.
least. Um, I think Hans phoned that one in.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and I Tonya is the other one I'd check out. Obviously, it's not just the Olympics. Obviously, it's all the competitions she did, but yeah, Olympics play a key part of that. And that's an interesting one about portraying a not particularly or widely detested. I was going to say not particularly liked, but or a widely detested sports figure, and but
which
still making her kind of compelling and kind of interesting in her way.
and that's unfair because it's not really her fault.
I know,
It's
I
the
know, I
guy.
know. I know, but she's yeah, she'll always have that over her shoulder, But
Yeah, it's a bummer.
because normally you have like they're going through the trials and tribulations and ending on a high. That film really almost does the opposite, kind of starts low and ends low, which is an interesting way of doing it.
Yeah, back to the status quo. All
Yeah,
right. Well, that is it. Be sure to go buy stuff off our Redbubble. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and Sam, until next time, where can people find you?
you can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Film Magazine, where there's quite a bit from me this week actually. I've updated. There's a video version of my review of Deadpool live, which this gentleman here has kindly voiced over because he's got that radio voice. So yeah, it makes my words sound great. So check that out on our YouTube channel. And then I've updated my two Marvel lists. So Deadpool and Wolverine is now in my MCU ranked list, and Cassandra Nova, the villain of Deadpool and Wolverine, is now in my villains ranked list. I've done a 25th anniversary review of The Iron Giant, which is my favorite animated movie of all time. And I think because My Neighbor Totoro is in UK cinemas again this week, Joe has kind of reshared my top 10 Studio Ghibli films list as well. So all those are on the front page now. So check them out if you so wish.
Yep. And Kieran is not here, but he hopes you don't find him, and he is at K Judgmental. He wrote Where to Start with Stanley Kubrick. That came out on the 26th. So, if you haven't watched his stuff, go read that.
For the record, I would pick exactly the same three to start with Stanley Kubrick. It's a really good, yeah, good list.
I would personally quibble on one of them just because, I mean, you have to really be wanting to watch that movie, I think, to get through it. But another review of Hitman, we have that up from Rayana Nirmahi, and sorry if I said your name wrong. I'm only a reader, not a say our out louder. And then The Devil's Bath, we have a review of that from Lauren Frisson. So again,
which sounds insane. It's a new film on Shudder. I've not got around to it yet, but I do want to get to it.
yeah, I will spoil this. It's a pretty good review. So yeah, so check those out. You can find me at Jacob Film Guy and watch the video that Sam wrote that I just said. I said it. I didn't really know what I was talking about, and I got the movie spoiled for me. Not really. It's not that bad. Yeah, but that is it. Again, Redbubble, buy our stuff, support us. We also take money at PayPal. And that is it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.